This is the default starting page on openai.com, where we can find out how ChatGPT in general works. As we now want to use the API, we should select this developers option up here and there check out the overview page. I'm mentioning this because this page is the starting point for the entire API documentation up here, and also for the so-called API reference, which will become important when implementing the API in our own projects. Besides that, as mentioned, working with APIs is not for free. Therefore, in this area of the OpenAI website, you can also find information about your personal user account, and more importantly, you can manage your account in here. There, you can also check out the billing, for example, to see your different payment methods. You can set usage limits, and you can also find information about your current usage of different APIs. We can also create so-called API keys. This will also be needed when working with the API, but we'll dive into this in a few minutes. But due to all the features related to the API, I just wanted to start this lecture with introducing this section of the OpenAI website. Besides the basic API knowledge, which we'll also explore together in this module now, we also have some other prerequisites to use the API. I want to get started with a very simple application using Python. As you know, the most popular programming language, and also a great language actually to implement such simple API-related applications. And to be able to follow along now, you need to have Python installed on your machine. Besides Python, you also need a package manager, for example pip, which is the de facto default package manager the majority or many Python developers use. So such package managers are important to install packages or libraries which come with certain features and functionalities which we need also in this module, because to use the API, we need to install the OpenAI library with the pip install OpenAI command. So therefore, without having a package manager, we can't install that library. And this library makes using the API a lot easier for us. Having installed these different tools is very important. We'll of course install the OpenAI library together, but besides that, you should make sure that all these things work on your machine. To create the app now and to better understand the official documentation, you can go to the API reference. There you can also find the pip install OpenAI command I just talked about. We'll ignore npm for the moment. There you can find information about authentication. This is the API key thing I just talked about, but we'll explore this together. And then you can find some more information about how to use the API in general, but we can actually go down up to the point where we find the completions section. To the right, we can now find an example request, so to send data to the OpenAI API. Before we do that though, we have to understand one more thing. Because OpenAI offers specific models, so GPT-4, GPT-3.5 and so on, only on specific so-called API endpoints. One of these endpoints is the completions endpoint. The other important endpoint to get started is the chat completion endpoint. We will use the chat completion endpoint for our projects here. Let me quickly explain to you why.